My mom leaned in, glanced at my daughter, and whispered, "We don't sit with mistakes." The table laughed. My daughter looked down. I just grabbed her hand and walked out. That night, Dad texted, "You're still covering the car payment tomorrow, right?" I replied, "Not for people who humiliate my kid." By noon the next day, they were freaking out. I told them not to ruin it over and over again. It was my birthday, and I didn't want anything fancy. No drama, no passive-aggressive comments, no tight-lipped smiles. I just wanted one peaceful night with the people I loved, especially my daughter. I even reminded them the day before. Please, just be decent to her. Not warm, not affectionate, not even friendly. Just decent. That was all I asked. My mom said I was being dramatic. My dad didn't answer. They've always had a strange relationship with my daughter, Ava. She's 13, sharp, a little introverted, the kind of girl who notices everything and says very little. And unfortunately for her, she was born into a family that values fake smiles and polite silence over honesty. She doesn't fit their mold, and I guess they never forgave her for that. Things had been getting worse for a while. A jab about her weight here, a joke about her attitude there. Always quiet enough to deny, never loud enough to confront. At holidays, they'd forget her favorite foods. At birthdays, they give her passive-aggressive gifts like a self-help book for teen girls with big feelings. Once my mom told her not to wear yellow because not every color flatters everyone. "Sweetie," I said something, then got told I was too sensitive. Still, I invited them to my birthday dinner. Habit may be your hope. Or because after all these years, I still thought maybe they'd surprise me. That maybe if I begged hard enough, warned them clearly enough, they'd act like normal loving grandparents for one damn night. We booked a restaurant. Nothing extravagant, just a quiet little Italian place Ava liked because of the string lights and big windows. I told her she could pick the venue. She smiled. She even wore the blouse my mom gave her last Christmas. I hadn't seen her wear it before. Maybe she thought it would help. Everyone arrived on time. My husband, a few close friends, some cousins. The vibe was light. My mom showed up in a dress she wore to every occasion like it was her personal uniform for being seen. My dad looked bored within 5 minutes, already half scrolling through his phone. But Ava sat beside me, quiet, polite, trying. For a while, it felt normal. We ordered, laughed, even joked around. I started to relax. Maybe I'd been too tense, too defensive. Maybe this time really would be different. Then dessert came. Tiramisu, AA's favorite. Someone made a joke about parenting. I don't even remember what it was. And Ava, in that matter-of-fact teen voice, said, "I don't think I want kids when I grow up." It wasn't rude, just honest. And honestly, not that deep. People chuckled. Even I smiled. But my mom turned her head sharply and locked eyes with Ava. She leaned in slowly across the table and whispered something I couldn't quite hear. I saw Ava blink, then lower her head. Her fingers tightened around her spoon. I leaned in and asked what was said. My mom just shrugged, sipped her wine, and said loud enough for everyone to hear. I told her, "We don't sit with mistakes." The table went quiet. Then, unbelievably, someone laughed. One of my cousins, I think, nervous or clueless, I don't know. But Ava didn't move. She stared at her lap like she was trying to disappear into it. I didn't say a word. I stood up, took her hand, and walked out. No yelling, no big scene, just silence, and every single head at that table watching us leave. We didn't even take the cake. That night, my phone blew up. Apologies from friends, messages from relatives. One cousin texted, "I can't believe she said that." Another wrote, "Ava didn't deserve that. I'm sorry, but my mom, nothing. My dad, nothing until 10-12 p.m. You're still covering the car payment tomorrow, right?" That was it. No mention of what happened. No mention of Ava. I stared at it for a full minute, then typed back, "Not for people who humiliate my kid." No reply. The next morning, I had 7 missed calls from my dad, 2 from my mom. By noon, they were calling my husband, my sister, even my job. Suddenly, it wasn't about Ava. It was about panic. And I started to see things clearly for the first time. All these years, I thought I was keeping the peace. I thought I was balancing 2 worlds. Protecting Ava while staying loyal to the people who raised me. But they weren't really my family anymore. And they had never truly accepted her. That day, everything changed. They just didn't know it yet. The first thing I learned after cutting them off financially was how fast panic shows up when entitlement loses its cushion. They didn't call to ask how Ava was doing. They didn't ask if she was okay after that night. They didn't even pretend to care. The calls were about logistics, confusion, urgency. My dad left a voicemail saying there must have been some mistake with the payment. My mom followed with a text about how the bank doesn't like delays and how stressful it was for them. Nothing about the words that broke my kid. They've never liked the word no. Not because they're loud or aggressive. They're worse than that. They guilt. They say they remind you of sacrifices you never asked for. Growing up, every disagreement ended the same way, with me apologizing just to keep things calm. I didn't even realize I was trained that way until I stopped. The car payment wasn't a small thing. I'd been covering it for almost a year. It started as just until things stabilize, which somehow turned into an expectation. Same with the insurance. Same with the shared account I helped manage because my mom kept locking herself out and refused to learn. They like to say we were a team. Family helps family. What they really meant was that I helped, and they received .so when I didn't respond. The tone shifted. My dad started calling my husband, twice in one day. My mom messaged my sister, who then called me, confused and uncomfortable. Then they went wider. A friend sent me a screenshot of a message my mom had sent her, asking if I was going through something and suggesting Ava was just too sensitive lately. Too sensitive. That was their diagnosis. Not cruel. Not inappropriate. Not humiliating. Just sensitive that I didn't defend myself. I didn't correct the story. For the first time in my life, I let them sit with the narrative they created. Instead, I started undoing things. I removed my name from their accounts, changed passwords, canceled the shared calendar that held their appointments. I stopped refilling the gas card I'd given my dad because he hated dealing with apps. I didn't announce any of it. It just stopped. They noticed fast that my dad left another voicemail, his voice tight, saying he didn't understand why I was punishing them over one comment. One comment. As if it hadn't been years of small moments stacked on top of each other. As if Ava hadn't come home from their house asking what she'd done wrong. As if I hadn't spent nights reassuring her that adults aren't always kind, even when they're supposed to be. What hurt most was how easily they dismissed her. They never said her name. Not once. She was always the girl, or your daughter, or the kid. Like distancing language made it cleaner. Like it erased responsibility that I didn't call back. While they spiraled, Ava got quieter. Not sad, observant. She asked me if Grandma was mad at her. I told her the truth. I said, some people don't like being held accountable, and that has nothing to do with you. That was the moment I realized I was done explaining that I'd spent years translating my parents to my child, softening them, making excuses so she wouldn't feel unwanted. And I'd spent years translating my child to my parents, hoping one day they'd listen. They never did. And now that the money was gone, the silence felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. Up by the end of the week, they weren't just calling. They were begging. And I still didn't answer. By day 10, the silence had become too loud for them. They tried to hold their ground at first, acting casual, like I'd overreacted and would come around after cooling off. But when the car payment didn't go through, when the groceries didn't show up, when the shared account went dead and I didn't respond to their passive-aggressive guilt texts, they cracked. The first real shift came in a text from my dad. 2 sentences. No punctuation. We understand you're busy and stressed. We don't want to add to it. Translation. Why aren't you answering? My mom followed with one of her long, emotional essays. It started with, I've been thinking about what happened, and spiraled into a full play-by-play of how maybe her comment came out wrong, how humor doesn't always land the way it's meant to. She even brought up her age, how she's from a different time. No apology, no accountability, just soft excuses and vague regret. She ended with, we just want things to go back to normal. Normal. As if normal was me constantly managing the damage they caused while smiling through it. I didn't reply. That weekend, I took Ava out. Just us. We drove an hour to a used bookstore she loved, the one with mismatched furniture and a sleepy cat in the window. I let her pick whatever she wanted. We sat in a quiet cafe afterward, her legs curled under her as she read the first chapter of a fantasy book she'd been waiting months to get. She looked up and asked, are Grandma and Grandpa mad? I didn't answer right away. Then she kept going. I'm not sorry for what I said at dinner. I wasn't trying to be rude. I just said how I felt. I told her I knew. I told her she didn't need to apologize for being honest. Before we left, she asked one more question. Do I have to see them again? That one was harder. I told her, not unless they change. She nodded like she already knew the answer, but needed to hear it from me. When we got home, I had 3 missed calls and 2 voicemails. Point 1 was from my dad, short and panicked. Something about the bank calling, needing to sort out insurance and late fees. He said they were about to lose the car and everything was falling apart over nothing. Over nothing. The second voicemail was my mom crying. Full meltdown. She mentioned my dad's blood pressure, how he wasn't sleeping, how they couldn't believe I was doing this to them. Still nothing about Ava. Not one word. And that's when I knew they weren't upset about what they did. They were upset that it had consequences. They missed access. Control. The quiet luxury of knowing I'd always show up at the last minute. To pay the bill, fix the problem, smooth things over with my daughter, and pretend we were still a family. That was gone now, and they were scrambling. They tried other angles after that. My sister called and said they really weren't doing well. A cousin reached out to check on me and casually mentioned how hard this must be for my mom. My mom, who humiliated my daughter in public, laughed, and then doubled down. Everyone kept acting like the situation was complicated. It wasn't that a grown woman looked a 13-year-old girl in the eye and told her, in front of a room full of people, that she was a mistake. That's not something you fix with a "remember this photo from 1997. I didn't respond. I stayed quiet and focused on Ava. I started rethinking everything. Holidays, traditions, shared obligations. I realized how much of my adult life revolved around people who hadn't earned that space. I hadn't gone no contact. Not yet. But the walls were going up, and for once I wasn't looking for a way back in. I was checking the locks. By week 3, they stopped pretending. The guilt-filled voicemails, concerned texts, and old photos stopped working. One rainy Tuesday, my dad showed up unannounced, pounding on the door. I didn't answer. He left a folder in the mailbox, loan papers, overdue bills, a sticky note that said, "This is all over one stupid comment." No apology, just desperation. I didn't respond. Then they crossed the line. They called Ava, using my mom's old number. Ava told me calmly that Grandma said families forgive each other and asked her to come over. Ava said no and blocked the number herself. That's when I knew this wasn't confusion. It was control. The next day my mom texted, saying Ava wasn't that upset and that I was projecting. That flipped something in me. That night, I cut every tie. Accounts closed. Cards canceled. Passwords changed. Locks replaced. I told Ava the truth, that they tried to go through her. I told her she didn't know anyone access just because they were family. She told me something she'd never shared before. My mom once commented on her weight when she was 12. She stayed quiet to avoid conflict. I realized I'd been afraid of rocking the boat while my daughter had been quietly drowning. That I sent one final message. If you want to be in Ava's life, you apologize to her, fully and honestly. Otherwise, don't contact us again. My mom replied, saying they wouldn't grovel, and accused me of being emotional. That was it. No apology. No change. Just confirmation. After that, they went silent. Others didn't. Relatives reached out, minimizing it, calling it a misunderstanding. No one asked about Ava. Not one person. The worst message came from my sister. They're not perfect, but they're still our parents. Maybe talk to them for Ava's sake. That was when I realized how warped everything had become. Everyone was so focused on my parents, on keeping the family image intact, that they completely ignored what this had done to Ava. Like she was collateral. She wasn't. She was the center of it, and something changed in her. Quietly. Slowly. She started coming out of her room more, answering questions instead of shrugging. She stopped hiding her sketchbook. One day, I found a drawing she left on the table. Me and her on a park bench, laughing, while a faceless group sat behind us. One speech bubble said, "We don't sit with mistakes." But we weren't at that table. She'd drawn us walking away. She wasn't just accepting what happened. She was rewriting it. Meanwhile, my parents kept pretending nothing had changed. My mom told people I was taking space. She tried to pull me back into things like I'd just stepped away briefly. They were losing control of the story, and they didn't know what to do with that. Ava, though, was blooming. She joined art club, started baking, laughed with her whole face again. She never asked if they'd apologize or if we'd go back. She just waited. I tried one last thing. Not for them, but for Ava. I sent one sentence. Ava is willing to meet once if you're ready to apologize face to face. Their reply came 2 days later. We'll think about it, but only if you're not going to make a scene. That told me everything. They didn't want accountability. They wanted to save face. So I didn't respond. I blocked their numbers, removed them from school contacts, erased them from every account and form. It felt cold, but clean that I told Ava the truth. That they'd been given a chance and didn't take it. That she wouldn't be seeing them again, not because she wasn't wanted, but because she deserved better. She nodded and said, "I'm a little sad, but not the kind that stays." Thanksgiving was just the three of us. Messy, imperfect, full of laughter. Later, Ava drew one more picture. 3 people at a table by an open window. Under it, one line. "We don't sit with mistakes. We make space for each other." That's when I understood. Loyalty isn't sacrifice. It's choosing the people who protect your dignity and your child's self-worth. I chose Ava. I'd choose her again every time.